The first sounds were startling, like gunfire, rivets snapping one after the other. Then the ground began to tremble. A low rumble rolled through Boston's north end, swelling into a roar. In an instant, walls buckled and homes splintered. The air filled with cries as people desperately struggled to breathe as the wave dragged them under. And by the time silence returned, 21 lives were gone. In the early 1900s, molasses was part of everyday life. It sweetened food and drinks, and was distilled into industrial alcohol for munitions and chemicals. On Commercial Street in the North End, the United States Industrial Alcohol Company built its own reservoir, a steel tank 50 feet tall, 90 feet across, capable of holding over 2 million gallons of molasses. From the day it went up in 1915, it was a problem. The seams groaned, the rivets leaked. On warm days, syrup streaked down the sides and pooled in the dirt. Children brought cups and buckets to catch the drips. The company didn't repair it. Instead, they painted the tank brown so that the leaks wouldn't be visible. Engineers warned it wasn't safe. Rivets had burst during the very first fill. The tank had never been tested properly, but wartime demand was too great to stop production. So it remained an iron giant until the day it failed. January 15th, 1919, began like any other winter day in Boston. The city had just endured 2 days of bitter cold, but by noon the temperature had climbed into the 40s. In the North End, families cooked lunch, children played in the streets, and workers moved along Commercial Street without much notice of the steel tank looming above them. At 12:30 in the afternoon, it gave way. The sound like gunfire as rivets tore loose, followed by a deep rumble that shook the ground. Then came the wave, a wall of molasses as high as 25 feet, racing through the neighborhood at more than 30 miles an hour. It ripped houses from their foundations. A freight car was hurled off its tracks. The firehouse of Engine 31 collapsed, burying men inside. People were knocked off their feet, swallowed in a tide so heavy it was impossible to fight. Horses screamed until they vanished beneath the syrup. Rescue was desperate. Police and sailors waded in, slowed to a crawl in waist-deep molasses. Ropes were thrown. Welders cut through steel, but the flood was too thick, too suffocating. For many, there was no escape. When the wave receded, the destruction was almost beyond comprehension. 21 people were dead. More than 150 were injured. The search for victims stretched on for days. Some bodies were found quickly, pulled from the wreckage by rescuers. Others weren't recovered until months later, carried into the harbor by the tide. And the cleanup was brutal. Workers used salt water and sand to wash the streets. Molasses clung to cobblestones, filled basements, and coated the walls of homes. Boots tracked it through offices, streetcars, and shops across Boston. For weeks, insects swarmed the North End. In the aftermath, the lawsuits dragged on for years. In 1925, the United States Industrial Alcohol Company was found liable and forced to pay out damages equal to millions of dollars today. It became a landmark case in corporate negligence, shaping how companies would be held accountable in the future. So why did the tank split open? The primary theory is that the tank walls were too thin and not properly stress tested. The sudden warm-up that January day may have expanded the syrup inside, pushing the faulty steel past its breaking point. Today, a small plaque on Commercial Street marks the disaster. When I visited Boston, I walked the Freedom Trail, past monuments, graveyards, and sites that have stood for centuries. The city wears its history openly, but some stories are remembered only as a whisper. The Great Molasses Flood is one of them. Its memory lingers in smaller ways, in old photos, in court records, and in the claim that on hot summer days in the north end of Boston, you can still catch the sweet smell of molasses in the air.